Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. Of course, brought to you by Fighters First. FightersFirst.shop. Get all of our fresh merchandise. Support Art of MMA. Brandon's got the legendary shirt on. Dan's rocking his Cage My IQ shirt on. Of course, I got the logo shirt. You see the pop-up right now. Promo code this week is going to be Mercenary. Save 20% in honor of AJ McKee's big win. Of course, that makes Brandon happy. So we're going to roll with that today and talk about everything. But first, let me introduce my co-host today, of course, the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, besides this raspy voice, I'm doing well, baby. Agent McKee and new.
That's the best you ever sounded. And of course, also joining us to talk about Bellator, talk about UFC last weekend, and, of course, the big UFC pay-per-view coming up this week. We brought in Cage My IQ's Dan Bakley. Dan, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Before we get into the show, of course, check out the promo code above us. They're all episode long. Check out some of the fresh teas. Save 20%, promo code Mercenary. You can, of course, check out Dan's show on the network as well. Cage My IQ puts out stuff all week long. Sometimes you even got to dig and find the Art of MMA, but that's why I put Art of MMA right on the front, because he puts out so much content you might not see us. Brought him on, and he's burying us. Damn it. Anyway, a lot of talk about this week, but strangely, I'm not angry, so no rant this week. We're just going to jump straight into the news. There are a couple of headlines going on. First and foremost, it's been announced. We announced last week Usman Covington. They were trying to get the sequel for New York. Well, also Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje. I feel like we've been talking about that fight since Chandler first arrived in UFC, because he was supposed to be like the backup in case Gaethje or Khabib didn't make weight. Well, here we are, pretty much a year later, finally getting that fight. It's supposed to be at UFC 268 in New York. Anybody that's in New York knows what's going on in the New York area. We were supposed to have an event in London that kind of got pushed away because of the vaccine requirements. New York City's following suit with the vaccine requirements for indoor events, or the vaccine passport, as they're calling it. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that event. They could do it in Vegas. They could also just do it maybe across the river in Newark. I know before UFC was legal in New York, they were doing a lot of events in the Newark Prudential Center, right, Brandon?
Yep.
Yeah, Prudential Center. Yeah, so I remember John Jones had a big fight in Newark, a couple of them actually. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to keep it in the New York area, but maybe just do it across the river if that's what needs to be done. I also am not really sure 100% on what's going to be going on come November. Hopefully we're a little bit past what we're dealing with now with the Delta variant and everything else going on in the country. So Chandler Gaethje set for 268. Also, another big fight set up. Vettori kind of called him out a little bit after his loss to Adesanya. So Costa Vettori finally going to match up on October 23rd. It's going to be a UFC Fight Night card. Location to be announced. I don't know about you guys. I'm not going to hold my breath to think that Paulo Costa is going to show up for this one, especially when his contract signing picture had a bottle of whiskey sitting there right there in front of him. So we'll see. And then the so-called boogeyman, Islam Makhachev, Rafael dos Anjos a week later, October 30th, on the same card that's being headlined by Blagojevich and Teixeira at UFC 267. You know, Islam keeps saying everybody's scared of him. Rafael dos Anjos has said, I'm not scared of anybody. So we're going to see if Islam is living up to the hype, if he can take out a former champion and keep on rising to the top, or if that train slows down a little bit going against dos Anjos, who looked, I mean, yes, it was a guy in and out of retirement, and Paul Felder, but Paul Felder's always been a dangerous opponent, and dos Anjos just destroyed Paul Felder and unfortunately put him back in retirement. We love Paul, but even Paul will tell you that was not a good night for him. So, all right, that is the quick news. We're going to go ahead and jump into some results. Not going to waste much time today. We're going to hold off on Bellator because Bellator was more the main event, and I want to save that just a little bit to see if Brandon loses his voice completely before we talk about AJ McKee. For those that don't know, Brandon was at a grappling tournament this weekend supporting his Tiger Schulman's guys and girls. So, you know, he was screaming a little bit. He wasn't involved in the New York City brawl, the New York Giants brawl that I know of. Were you? Were you at the bottom of the scrum?
No, I was not.
You didn't pull Daniel Jones out of there, no? All right. I didn't know if you were running sprints with the rest of the team or what. Sorry, Danny. We know Philly doesn't make much news, so you guys can be at the bottom of the standings. It's fine. All right, enough football talk before everybody tunes out like they talk about when we talk about wrestling. All All right, UFC Vegas 33. Let's talk about it, guys. Uriah Hall versus Sean Strickland. Both Dan and I picked Uriah Hall. It was not a good night for Uriah Hall. I don't know. Personally, I don't know if it was strategy, just he took Sean Strickland for granted, or Sean Strickland is just that damn good, because Sean Strickland has looked great his last 4 or 5 fights coming back from his injuries, moving to a different weight class. But as I always said, and you know, I made it public on Twitter, and Brandon noticed it too, Sean Strickland never moves his head. I was sitting there that entire fight screaming, do your spinning back kick, do your spinning back fist. Because he did it like once or twice and landed both times. Because Sean Strickland wouldn't see it coming the way he just never moves. He wants to stalk you down and beat you up, and he doesn't want to do anything fancy. Now, he mixed in some great takedowns. He mixed in some good clinches. He kept Uriah Hall, especially from the second and third, fourth round on, not necessarily the first round, but like later on. He kept him off balance and just straight up beat him up. Dan, you're our guest. I'll start with you and let Brandon save his voice for a second. What you think of that fight and what happened?
I think just what happened was the fact that Sean Strickland went his game, of course. He has no defense. He just moves forward at all costs, throws a lot of strikes at you, and then whatever happens, happens. He allows himself to get hit so he can hit the other person. And, of course, I thought Uriah Hall, knowing that, might be a little bit more aggressive, because that passive style that he likes to do with stepping backwards and waiting for the counter to get that knockout that he always gets at times, because he has that knockout power. It just didn't work because Sean Strickland just kept on moving forward and didn't allow him to get going at all. And then, of course, like you said, he mixed in the wrestling to kind of throw a little bit more of a wrench into everything. But that's what you get with Uriah Hall. 1 minute he's knocking guys out, the next he's being too passive, and he doesn't connect on anything. He doesn't rely on volume. He always has low volume input, and it's either like knockout or bust for him now because of that passive stand back style. And that's what we're going to get from him now. That's why he can't move any higher than he has in the division, because he can't sustain anything because of how he fights.
Brandon, is this more a case of bad strategy by Uriah Hall, or was this more of what Sean Strickland did?
Hey, sometimes you have good days in the office. Sometimes you have bad days in the office. Today, Saturday was just a bad day for Uriah. Like, to me, he just never got going. You know, like we said, Sean Strickland just stays in front of you, doesn't move his head. Perfect opportunity for Uriah to have a highlight reel. Uriah is known for throwing kicks. He really didn't throw any kicks in his fight. He was just boxing with him.
I was screaming to throw him.
You know, saying he just used his hands. But then again, like I said, it just seemed like he just never really got going. So I don't know if it was in his head or if it was a game plan or what, but it just wasn't Uriah's day. Sean Strickland came out, executed his game plan. He got the W.
Yeah, I didn't get it. Like, Uriah Hall is known for that. Like, that's what you do. And this is the perfect opponent to do what you do. And he didn't do it. He threw a couple calf kicks. In the first round, he just threw a couple calf kicks. He threw, like, towards the end of the first round, I think he threw one spinning back kick. And it landed. And, Sean Strickland kind of blocked it, but still, it was there. I think I saw him throw it once the rest of the fight. And by the end of the fight, Uriah Hall looked like he had been in a 10-round war. And Sean Strickland was looking like, who's next? You got another 5 rounds for me? Who's coming? We worried about Sean Strickland's gas tank. We worried about all this stuff. I think Uriah Hall is done as far as contenders. Like, no more calling out Adesanya. No more call. If that was Adesanya would have put Uriah Hall out in the first or second round. Sean Strickland showed Uriah Hall a little bit of respect. Adesanya wouldn't have. He would have put him out. Especially the way Uriah Hall's been calling out Adesanya left and right. Once he has a chip on his shoulder, Adesanya, and you already heard, like, through Twitter and everything else, the shit that Adesanya's been saying about the middleweight division this week. They say I'm going to paraphrase politely and say that he thinks that they're all in trouble. Because if they don't get better, they have no shot. And then he posted a picture today celebrating his 1 million followers with a real BBC. And I'm talking about a chicken, people. Get your heads out of the gutter. Anyway, at least Dan laughed. Anyway. I can't even with Brandon right now. Let's talk about a couple things to go from here. Uriah Hall, I find it hard to find anybody for him to match up with right now. He's going to need a little recovery period. But in that middleweight division, everybody's kind of coming, going, doing what they're doing. Maybe you match him up with, I don't even know, like maybe Chris Weidman when Weidman comes back in a few months. Maybe they run that back like they were talking about. They said once Weidman gets healthy that they do it again. So maybe. And then all I can think of is somebody like a Kevin Holland. I don't know. Maybe even my boy Brad Tavares. I don't know. Brandon, what do you think's next for Uriah Hall?
I mean, because I know I think Sean Strickland is now ranked number 8, so I know he's ahead of him. So I mean, he could probably still fight somebody in the top 15. Yeah, so I'm saying so. I mean, he can still fight somebody in the top 15.
Dan, what do you think?
I'm gonna say Edmund Shabazian. I think he's at 11. Of course, Hall's at 10. I don't think they're gonna get anybody ahead because a lot of those guys are already booked, other than I think Hermanson. And then I don't think anybody other than Shabazian below him will work. I just think it's either Shabazian or maybe Holland, but Holland's already booked as well.
Who's Holland booked against?
Holland is booked against who's he? He's booked in the top 10. The name is not coming to me, but he's booked for September, end of September.
Okay. I didn't hear anything about Kevin Holland recently, so I didn't know about that one. I think right now, though, I think Uriah Hall's on entertainment matchups at this point. Like, what's a good fight? What's a good entertaining matchup? Because the contender thing, I think, is done for right now. I just don't see him getting another shot at this point in his career. Yeah, Kevin Holland's matched up against the younger Kyle Dawkins.
Yes.
Coming up on UFC Fight Night in October 2nd. But yeah, I think Uriah Hall at this point is just going to go for paychecks at this point. I think it's what he got to do. Sean Strickland, we pretty much know what's next for him. Luke Rockhold's been talking about coming back for a while, getting at least 1 or 2 more fights before he calls it a career. He wanted a top 10 guy. Dana offered him Sean Strickland. And now that he's talking shit about Sean Strickland not being worthy, Sean Strickland's kind of chirping back a little bit. There's 2 things I think about that. One, I'm kind of curious as to, Brandon, I want your opinion on this, because Sean Strickland said after the fight, his dream is to kill somebody in that cage. As a professional athlete, that's the last thing that I think the UFC needs. And as far as, making it a mainstream sport and something like that, you don't want accidents in the cage. You don't want somebody, same thing with boxing. When there was a couple like deaths in the ring, it really kind of hurt them in like the 80s and 90s. And you start seeing more regulations to try to prevent serious injury. You guys want to, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys want to go in there, you want to try to knock each other's heads off, but at the end of the day, you want everybody to go home safely to their families. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Sean Strickland wants to go out there and literally murder somebody in the cage. To me, that's a problem. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, hey, like the guy said, the guy said on his post-fight interview, he said if he wasn't in the UFC, he would probably be in a meth lab right now. So, I mean, like Sean Strickland's just one of those guys, man. He's a crazy dude. I mean, you just hope he doesn't end up like a war machine or something like that. Where they go too far.
Yeah, I when I hear something like that, it just like, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, that's not what you're supposed to, like, you're now a contender. You're now a contender. And I understand you want to go in there with that kill or be killed mentality. That's not a problem. That's just a warrior outlet. But when you sit there and literally say you want to kill somebody in the cage, I don't think I'm being over dramatic to say that he definitely has a screw loose when it comes to that stuff. Fantastic fighter. We know his hands can fly. And honestly, I think he would destroy Luke Rockhold if they were to stand up and go against each other, because I don't think Rockhold's going to move either, unless Rockhold mixes in a little bit more of his wrestling. I don't know, Dan, what would you think about a matchup between Luke Rockhold and Sean Strickland?
I think it kind of makes perfect sense. And to think, a buddy of mine said, I think they were teammates before, or they are now. So it makes it even more interesting to think of the two. And for Luke Rockhold to come back, of course, he's going to want to get that top 10 guy, and he's going to get him, and he's going to get him off of a good matchup like this, where he just basically beat Uriah Hall where Uriah Hall didn't get anything going. And to what you're saying about the killing him, I don't think he literally wants to kill him. I think he, like any other
Oh, I
fighter.
think he does. I think 100% wants to literally murder somebody in the cage.
I think it's more so he wants to get that highlight rear victory where you get that notice on you, you get that notoriety, and every fighter wants that. And I think he should have worded it better instead of saying, I'm going to kill him. Because when you say you're
I
going to
think
kill
you're giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think Sean Strickland meant what he said.
Because if you're not in there looking to beat the other guy, then you shouldn't even be there to begin with.
Oh, 100%. I think you should be going in there trying to destroy your opponent, take his head off his shoulders and all that stuff. But the way he worded that was not a mistake. He's like, literally, I dream of murdering somebody in the cage. Nothing would make me happier. That's what he said. And then following up with the whole, I would be in a meth lab. Sean Strickland definitely has screws. Now, whether him and Rockhold ever trained together, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. They're both California guys. American Top Team is out there with Kane and Rockhold, and at one point DC and everybody, San Jose. But I'm not really sure where all that stood. I don't know if Sean Strickland was a member of the team or maybe they just trained together. I'm not sure. I know he's a member of Team Quest and he's been there for a while. So not really sure about that. But let's move on. There were a couple other fights to talk about on this card. Cheyenne Bays looked great. She came out. She avoided the headlock, Brandon. She didn't get Bulldog headlock. And then she knocked Gloria DePaula out. Such a strange knockout because, you know, she caught DePaula perfectly coming up where she was off the ground. It was a legal kick and pretty much knocked her out cold. And she started to walk off, but Paula grabbed her leg, so Mark Smith let it continue. And then, unfortunately, I don't think Mark Smith turned to say, no, the fight's still going on. And while he turned, Bays just started raining down on her, and he couldn't get back quick enough to really protect DePaula. And it's just unfortunate that DePaula took a few shots more than she probably had to, but it was just a weird circumstance. I know Brandon thinks I like to blame refs. I'm not blaming Mark Smith. He had to sit there and say, hey, the fight's not over. Keep going with the clock. And the moment he turns around, she's just getting destroyed. So maybe he should have stopped it when she first got knocked down, but she did try to keep fighting. So gave her benefit of the doubt. But Cheyenne Bays looked a lot better. I think that's kind of her path, Brandon. I think going through and fighting strikers and not the person that's going to wrap her up like an anaconda might be a better fit. What do you think?
Hey, man, it was a good fight. She looked good. You know, I mean, saying she definitely had some good top control, and then she had good timing. Say she waited until she got up, threw that head kick, boom, put her out, and then she followed it up. So I mean, happy for her. You know, she did get a bonus of the night. So I mean, like you said, I think striking is her game. You know, she got to work on that takedown defense, or should I say, she got to work on her jiu-jitsu. Really, I mean, it's one thing to get taken down, but it's another thing when you're down and you're not doing anything.
Yeah, she kept trying to do the passes in that fight, and she couldn't do it, and she just got stuck in that headlock over and over. Dan, I know it's a weird fight to talk about because that co-main event slot changed so much throughout the weeks. The entire fight card changed a lot throughout the weeks. We ended up with a pretty decent fight card. Anybody watched the UFC there was some exciting fights. Obviously, Bellator kind of stole some headlines last weekend, but UFC actually had a pretty good card. What do you think the future for Cheyenne Bays is? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and to think this was the fourth co-main event that they slotted into here, because it was just something with that co-main event that they just had to keep on shuffling in because of injuries or COVID. Then they had the
messed up my picks last week.
The Gooden and Stoltz fight that was taken off, brought on, taken off, brought back on. Like I felt like 2-3 times the day of. But I think she's really good at striking. Everyone forgets that even though she lost that Montserrat Reyes fight, at the end she was piecing up Reyes with the striking when they were standing up. Whenever they were standing, she was getting the better of the two. And when it's just that she had struggling with that bulldog throw into the clinch on the ground, she just struggled with that. If she can work on that and get better, she'll have a bright future where she could probably get into the top 10 because the boxing of hers is just really good. And then I give her credit for when she did get that kick, that she didn't just walk off and then not look at the ref and then be like, hey, I thought you stopped the fight.
She almost did.
She was focused. Like you see
Put her hands up. She's like, I'm done.
You see her look over and see go, and then she burst right back over and just started landing strikes on her. Yeah. She made sure that she didn't leave anything unturned. And then a lot of people that I knew were going with Depara. I was going with Baze to begin because I feel like she had something to prove after the performance that she did before. And as long as the fight was standing, I felt like her boxing was going to be good enough because she has really fast hands. And I think she showed it there in that fight. But I think she could get into the top 10. Maybe in that 8 to 10 range. She just has to improve to get any farther up that ranking.
Well, I know Dana's very high on both her and her husband, and they both had a big setback that last fight card together. So we'll see how they both bounce back. It'll be interesting to see where she gets matched up next. Also in that fight card, you saw the talked about fight. Jared Gooden, he knocked out Stoles like clean. Like that fight was so weird because it came on, came off, came back on. Of course, Gooden was also a substitute for Stoll's original opponent. Like I said, this fight card, I've said a number of times throughout the week, was just cursed. Like anything could go wrong with this fight card did go wrong. So they did end up having a really exciting card. Jason Witt with the big, I thought it was an upset over Barberina. He had a great performance. Melsick with that knock-in over England. Kai Kamaka got the win over your boy Danny Chavez. I'm gonna tell you what though, I don't agree with that decision. I know
it was a tie.
Yeah, it was a majority draw. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a draw. I thought Chavez did more to win that fight. I thought a lot of the hype went to Kamaka with the shots, but I thought Chavez kept putting in work. And I thought Chavez should have won actually 29-28 in my opinion, especially with that point taken away in the second round. I mean, at one point, I thought Kamaka was doing anything he could to get out of that fight. He eye pokes, groin shots, like he was doing everything he could illegally. I don't think he did any of it intentionally, Brandon. Don't laugh at me. I'm joking. But like he kept trying to do, like he just kept hitting with illegal shots. Like in that second round, it was just like a parody of like how many illegal shots can Kamaka hit Chavez with before he loses a point. And then shout out to Ginn Frey. That was going to be my pick last week before Brandon talked me into taking a Bellator pick. The Bellator pick paid off for me as well. It was the only one I actually got right last week. But Ginn Frey, she did great against Ashley Yoder. It's another fight that I encourage people sometimes to watch a fight without the announcers because the announcers were definitely hyping up some of the shots that Ashley Yoder was landing. But Ginn Frey just kept hammering her for 3 rounds. And some of the judges had it 30-20, or actually all 3 judges had it 30-27. If you listen to the announcers, it was a split decision. It was, oh my God. But the judges were like, no, 30-27. It's like not even a question. So shout out to Ginn Frey. Another big wins, 2 in a row for her. Anything else you guys want to point out on that card before we move on to the main event? All right. Also, Philip Rowe with the KO. Another big one against Orion Koski. So, all right, Brandon, I know you're ready to talk about this. Let's go ahead and talk about Bellator 263 because, Brandon, what's that you always say about AJ McKee? Can you say it? Do you have a voice?
He's the guy.
I thought you were going to say it better than that. I was even going to think about clipping it up and putting it in the beginning of the show like AJ McKee is that guy. Anyway, he let me down. Brandon's just struggling this week. It's the best he's ever sounded, though. Me and Dan got this, Brandon. Chill. All right, let's talk about Bellator 263. We're going to jump right into it. And new, not only the Bellator Grand Prix featherweight champion, but also the brand new featherweight champion, ending Pitbull's almost 4-year reign. Before that, he had lost it for a couple years and was champion like 3 or 4 years before that. So most of the last decade, Pitbull's been the featherweight champion. As long as AJ McKee's been in the division or in Bellator, Pitbull's been the champion. So I won't call it an upset. I know I picked Pitbull last week because of his resume and because of everything he's accomplished. Brandon keeps saying put respect on his name, but you got to put respect on the champ's name too. He earned it. Pitbull didn't get there by accident. He's been going through everybody. But AJ McKee has definitely shown throughout the time that he's a highlight reel waiting to happen. And I know I said last week that there was no way he'd sub him. I still don't think it was – I know it was a technical sub, but Pitbull was out on his feet. Once he landed that kick to the head, and then when Pitbull tried to jump in and he hit him in the face, in the jaw. I think Pitbull was out on his feet already. I think the submission was just a technicality. But he did get the sub. I was wrong, Brandon. I know I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I got to be 100% right all the time, or you'll roast me. I know he can't roast me this week. It's awesome. He got no voice. Anyway, but I am extremely happy for AJ McKee. I thought that the future is now. The question I had is, could you get through a veteran like Pitbull, who's done it all, been there and done that? And I'm sure we'll see the rematch, whether it's in Brazil or whatever, maybe for the lightweight title, maybe for the featherweight title. I'm not really sure how they're going to do that. They got a lot of stuff coming up on their grid with the light heavyweight Grand Prix and all these other cards coming up. But let's talk about this one. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to let you get all your voice out right now. Tell us about this fight. Tell us what happened. Try to be, objective. Try to be unbiased. Put your fanboy hat on the side. And tell us what happened with AJ McKee versus Patricio Pitbull Ferreira.
Oh man, from the walkout to the fight, it was AJ McKee's night, man. Saying that walkout that he had in front of the crowd was fire. Saying it basically was a hometown fight for him.
He had me with nothing but a G thing. I was like, oh, okay.
Right. What I'm saying? But he was in California. That's where he's from.
Hometown.
Yeah, exactly. The crowd was there for him. So I'm saying, so he went out, put on the show, came out like I really kind of thought he would have been a little reserved, maybe try to save his energy for the championship rounds. But now, man, AJ McKee came out and like he said one and done. And that's what he did. He caught him with the head kick. He knew that he had him, and then he went to follow up with those hands, and then boom, he saw the guillotine. He went to lock it up. I think I know Pitbull. I think Pitbull was trying to say that he wasn't out, but like
Pitbull
you said,
didn't know where he was.
Yeah, exactly. He was in a bad spot. Ref came in, saved him like the ref's supposed to do.
Yeah, Pitbull clearly didn't know where he was, and by the time everything had gone, like the coordination and all the other stuff, he was very respectful, very sportsmanship towards AJ. Gave him a hug, prayed with him. Pitbull did the right thing once he kind of realized what had happened. Dan, what you think of that fight?
I came in thinking, okay, you got AJ McKee who was talking shit from the beginning, saying, "Tick-tock, your time's up. It's going to be my time now." So I thought Pitbull was going to come in. It's going to come in angry, and then he was going to just from the bell bum rush him right away and come at him to close the distance. But he didn't really do that right away. I felt like he was going to time everything and then just feel out McKee. And then that's where McKee was like, okay, I'm going to throw a leg kick because I'm the taller guy. I got the distance. He caught him with that leg kick. You see Pitbull fall down, get up, but stumble backwards. And then that's when McKee was like, I got to come at him, make sure he doesn't regain consciousness. And he just started throwing at him. And then he locked in that guillotine. You see his hands fall down. You see him kind of get back up again, but that's where Joey Beltran made the right decision to call for it because he didn't want to risk anything else.
Mike Beltran.
Yeah, Mike Beltran, but because you saw him what was happening, and he didn't want to risk anything long term to happen. It was the right decision. He was out of it. He was done. He got caught with that, and then with the guillotine. AJ McKee was the better fighter that night. Maybe they run it back. Maybe they don't. We don't know. But AJ McKee talked the talk. He was able to walk the walk, and that's why he's champion now. And there's a lot of good things to think about in the future with who he could face and what could happen now. But he's the type of face that you could build around in that division.
So there's a couple things about one. I did say last week, I thought the key to AJ winning was his distance. I said that the distance would give Pitbull problems, but at the same time, Patricio Pitbull has made a career out of fighting fighters who had like Emmanuel Sanchez and other fighters that had a distance advantage on him, but he gets inside and he makes it dirty. I think Brandon was right. I think a lot of people, I think Pitbull thought that AJ might come out a little bit more calm and wait. And the first minute or so of the fight was kind of weird, right? Because neither guy wanted to go first. Both of them are very good counterpunchers. And Pitbull was kind of drawing, like he wanted AJ to kind of go so then he could react. But unfortunately, when AJ did finally go, Pitbull got caught. Now, I don't know that the rematch would be any different, to be honest with you. I think that distance is a problem. And if Pitbull can't get inside on a person like AJ, who's faster, younger, stronger, and dirty it up with like dirty boxing and grappling and stuff like that, I'll still stand by. I think if it was on the ground or something like that, I don't think AJ McKee taps him out. I think what happened, I think he was already out by the time AJ got that guillotine in. At least like his legs were gone, his body was gone. That head kick took him out, and then that follow-up right hand when Pitbull was trying to get up and AJ was coming in, he hit him with that right hand. That was it. And then, of course, they were already against the fence, locked him in. That was it. I know the talk is Pitbull versus AJ in Brazil, maybe even for the lightweight title. Home versus home, like you did it in your crowd. You got your hype. Now let me get my hype. But I don't think it turns out any different. I think the problem is, Dan mentioned it, about who's coming next. The next contender is Mads Burrell, who looked great against Manuel Sanchez, but I don't see that being a marquee matchup. You got a guy, the same thing Cyborg's kind of doing. You got another champion in Bellator that's calling out UFC guys because he doesn't believe there's competition in his own division. Now, if you look at the rankings, I got the lightweight or the featherweight rankings right here. After Mads Burrell, there's a whole list. I mean, obviously Pitbull's still number one, but there's a whole list of people. Manuel Sanchez just lost 2 in a row. Adam Bortz, he's 17-1, but most people don't know who he is. He might be a good young matchup. Another 2 young guys going against each other. And then who you got next? Aaron Pico's up and down. Daniel Weichel's a veteran. Pedro Carvalho has been up and down. Justin Gonzalez is undefeated at 12-0, but he's still got something to prove. None of those names are going to move a big show like this weekend, like Pitbull versus McKee did. None of them are going to be a main draw like that is. Now, AJ McKee, I think is, and maybe y'all disagree with me, I think he's a draw on his own at this point. I think people are going to tune in to see AJ McKee no matter who he fights. But if you want that big marquee matchup, I think it's got to be a rematch against Pitbull, especially since, Brandon always argues with me about, whether Stipe earns a shot or whatever against Ngannou because he won the title, lost the title, won the title, lost the title. But I also argue that Stipe had the belt for like 3-4 years or 3 years or something like that before the whole Daniel Cormier back and forth thing went. But Pitbull, other than that 2 years that Daniel Strauss had that featherweight title, for most of the last decade, Pitbull has been the featherweight champion. I think if anyone, despite how vicious of a knockout and sub that was, I think if anybody does deserve an immediate rematch, I think it's Pitbull. I don't know. I'll let you finish with this one before we move on, Brandon. What do you think is next for AJ and Pitbull?
I can see Pitbull dropping down the 135 because he wants to be the 135 champ, and he could vacate his lightweight title and let his brother and AJ fight for that belt. Because at the post-fight press conference, AJ McKee was saying, he was saying like, hey, we can do it again, but at 155, because he basically was trying to say that he really doesn't know if he could really. He was saying that he could do 145 if he had to, but he's really trying to say that his time at 145 is going to be over soon because he thinks he's getting bigger, getting older. It's going to be a little bit harder for him to make the weight. So he really wants to go up to 155 really already. Like he wants to be champ, right now. He basically like wants to pull a Conor McGregor. He wants to get that 145 belt.
He's talked about that before even he won the belt. Yeah.
Yeah. But as I was saying, the thing is like, I don't know if he will ever defend the 145 belt unless they come up with somebody for him. But Aaron Pico, those two won't fight because they were teammates. When Aaron Pico first started out at the body shop, I know they're boys like that. So I know he won't fight Aaron Pico, but I really could see either they do the rematch at 145 or they could do the rematch at 155, or like I said, Pitbull goes down to 135. He lets his brother get his shot at 155, and that way AJ McKee can just beat up the whole family.
What about Mads Burnell or Adam Bort?
Adam Boric, I would be fine with that. Like to me, to me, I know who Adam Boric is, but then again, I'm not the casual because he came out of nowhere and I think he beat was it Pico that he had beat, or he beat somebody that was a name.
I think he just beat Pico, yeah.
But I mean, like I say, it's two young guys, but I mean, it could be it could be Burnell since like I said, that was the co-main.
Yeah, speaking of co-main, a good transition, Brandon. That's why I have you as a co-host. Mads Burnell just I had Adam Burks in my name. Mads Burnell just basically Sanchez got off to a decent start, but rounds 2 and 3 especially, which is all Burnell. Sanchez couldn't get anything going. Dan, what you think of that fight?
I thought it went exactly how he envisioned it. He probably thought that he wasn't going to outstrike Sanchez because Sanchez has the height and then he has the reach. But he knew that he had to get that ground game going to kind of minimize it. And Mads Burnell, he can strike with you, but everybody forgets he can wrestle and he's really good with the submissions. And like you just don't know that because all you see is his highlight reels of knocking guys out or beating them up. And then I think UFC gave up on him too early. He went 1-2 in the UFC, with one of the losses being where he was dominating and then he just got caught in a submission. He just got beat. They let him go after 3 fights. That was their loss. And since then he's built his resume with Bellator since I think he's undefeated since joining the company. And he goes into this one. I think he got outstruck maybe 80-59 or 80-60 around that range. But then the difference maker in the fight was the 7 takedowns, 7 of 8 takedowns that he had. He was able to take him down, minimize a lot. Anytime Sanchez got anything going, he would stop that momentum with a takedown. And if you transition that through all 3 rounds, Sanchez really only outstruck him 5 shots per round. But then you got the 2 takedowns around. That's enough to kind of flip the judges to one side. That's why you did have one where they went. I think they gave a round to Sanchez, but then the other 2 rounds, like you said, were all
30-27, 30-27, and 29-28.
Yeah, it was all in favor of the Mad Hatter.
I can see Sanchez winning round 1.
Yeah, but I do think that he definitely won the fight. I do think he's a threat to AJ McKee with his background. He's just not the name. I do think what he can do, because he can strike with you, he can grapple with you, and then he has that submission background. I do think he presents a challenge. Whether it will work against AJ McKee is one thing, is another thing. But I do think he's a good threat.
Yeah, and Adam Burks beat it wasn't Pico, it was Jeremy Kennedy. He beat in April. That was Adam Burks last, and he's actually matched up against another undefeated fighter coming up at Bellator 265 with JJ Wilson. So that'll be another test for Adam Burks to see if he's worthy of challenging AJ. Brandon, you talked about Emmanuel Sanchez for a while, and both of us picked Sanchez in this fight for his experience and for the level, which I talked about last week. Losing to Arnold Allen in the UFC isn't a bad loss. Arnold Allen's another contender. He doesn't want to fight anybody. He always like finds reasons not to take fights. But when he does fight, he looks fantastic. He's been a UFC contender now for a year or 2 now, but just finding fights for him has been a problem. But Mads Burnell lost that fight in a fight that Dan mentioned. Like, he was having his moments in that fight until he got caught. What do you see? Like, do you see Sanchez still staying in the top 5 and fighting top 5 guys? Or do you think this Mads Burnell loss is like going to really like haunt him for a while?
No, man. I mean, Emmanuel Sanchez is that guy, man. He's a gritty guy. I mean, if he loses, he just picks himself up, dusts himself off, and just gets back on the grind. Like I said, to me, you're not a top 5 fighter anymore until you prove you're not a top 5 fighter anymore. Like, hey, he has back-to-back L's, but hey, one of them was to the former champ, and one of them was to Burnell, who's a talented guy. He's an up-and-comer as well, in Bellator. So I mean, we got to see what happens in his next fight. Like, but to me, man, Emmanuel Sanchez, he could maybe be in that gatekeeper role right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he matches up with somebody like Aaron Pico. He's still ranked 4. like I mentioned, Borks and JJ Wilson are 3-5. They're fighting each other in October. So they'll kind of help find out which one stays, which one goes. Crazy enough, Burnell, when he beat Sanchez, because Sanchez was the number 2 guy, he jumped up and took Sanchez's spot. So he came up 6 spots in the rankings, which seems to be a lot, even though he did beat the number 2 guy. So he kind of just took his ranking. But maybe Brandon's right. Maybe we don't see AJ McKee at featherweight again. Maybe he goes to lightweight, or maybe he does defend it one time. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Obviously, most of the attention is turning to the lightweight Grand Prix coming up, and obviously matchups like Lima and MVP. Musasi's back in action, some stuff like that. Also on this card, you saw Khabib's cousin. Khabib's still undefeated as a coach. How crazy is that? Undefeated as a fighter, undefeated as a coach. But Usman Nurmagomedov got the TKO over Murrow. I mean, it was still in the first round, but it took him a second to kind of get going in that fight. My pick, I picked Yamauchi over Chris Gonzalez, and I didn't even think it was going to be that dominant. Like, I thought Yamauchi and Chris Gonzalez would fight for a couple rounds. Yamauchi's, like I said, people talk about Chris Gonzalez being the prospect because he was undefeated, but Giotti is actually 2 years younger. He's just fought like since he was 17. He's been like a pro fighter. So he's proven that he should still be in the mix. He should be a contender people are talking about. Brandon, you want to talk about your fight real quick? Vanessa Porto?
Hey, man, all I want to say is that Vanessa Porto got the job done. Hey, it was a dog fight. You know, it was
ugly at times.
Insane. You know, it was a split decision. But, hey, you know, I think just her, you know, her experience came through, you know, and she got the job done.
Yeah, I think her ground control might have been a little bit more on the feet. I think they were kind of even. I don't think it was a bad split decision. I thought Porto kind of won too, but it wasn't her usual impressive performance either. So be interested to see what's next for her. Dan, anything else stand on that card for you before we move on?
Just the Mammadov Primus fight. A lot of people were mad about that fight because they thought it was really boring to watch. I give it to both guys because I felt like it was more of a chess match between the two. Because
I thought Primus won.
I had Mammadov because I didn't see anything from Primus other than him trying to counter takedown with the go-go platters and the submissions. He didn't really do any.
That's
offense.
Exactly why I thought Primus won, though, because Mammadov didn't do anything with his takedowns, and Primus was doing all the work, like on the ground. Primus was doing all the work, like he was doing submissions.
Yeah, but then you would see Mammadov pick him back up, moving towards the cage, pressure his head against the cage to get some of the pressure off of the submission, and then he was being held by one hand by Primus most of the time, and then Primus wasn't doing anything. Even it was a low striking fight, Mammadov still outstruck him, and then he took him down 3 times, one in each fight. I would have gave it to Primus had he had done anything else other than just 15 strikes. That's it. That's all he had.
But what did he do with those takedowns?
He got him down. He was being held. But what did Primus do to him?
But when he was on the ground, when he took him down, he was in trouble because Primus was trying to sub him every 5 seconds.
So you give him a win just because he's trying to sub him?
A takedown isn't a win.
But
if you take somebody down, and I want your opinion on this one, Brandon, because I see you laughing. If you take somebody down and the guy on the bottom is doing all the damage and all the work from submission attempts, and the guy on top is just really like in trouble because he took him down, Brandon, you tell me, you jump into this one. Who do you think won that fight, and what do you think of the takedown versus like person on the bottom trying to do subs?
I mean, I'm with you if the person on the bottom is working, but there's a thing though. Like Dan even said it, the man got outstruck, so it means Primus really wasn't doing much on the ground. He was maybe going for submission attempts, but just because you're going for a submission, that means that you still have to give the other person points for defending the submission because they didn't get caught in it.
He didn't do anything.
But it's not like it was near. But it's not like they were near submissions. It's not like really Mammadov was really in trouble. Like he was about to tap or anything.
No, a couple of those go-go's were close in the beginning.
That's why I said it was more like a chess match because he would try to get the submission, but then Mammadov would just pick him up and then throw him back down. He'd release it, But then Primus would just hold the right hand to keep him from striking, and that's what he did for half the round.
You know what? Screw you guys. My new best friend Ariel Helwani thought Primus won too. Okay,
You're wrong.
I'm kidding. Ariel Helwani and I don't really. Well, I met him once. He was an asshole, but I forgive him. He's my best friend now. Anyway, all right, that was Bellator 263. We're not gonna keep you guys much longer. You guys ready to make some picks before we get out of here? Got a big pay-per-view coming up this weekend, August 7th. It's Derrick Lewis versus Ciryl Gane, UFC 265 for the interim heavyweight title. We've talked enough about this situation in weeks past about whether this should be a title fight or not a title fight, what's going on with Ngannou, what's going on with Derrick Lewis and Ciryl Gane. I'll summarize real quick. There's no way. Well, they wanted Derrick Lewis to carry this card in Houston, which is great because all of a sudden Amanda got, I think, did Amanda get COVID? Is that what it was?
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah. So Amanda got COVID. So that fight that Brandon's been drooling over for her and Juliana Pena got pushed back to whenever, if it ever happens now. So that fight's off. Jose Aldo and Pedro Munoz, which is going to be a fantastic fight in my opinion, got moved up to the co-main. So they needed Derrick Lewis on this card anyway. They didn't know it at the time. Ciryl Gane just came off a pretty easy win against Volkov. He didn't take much damage at all. So he wanted to keep moving up. This guy has jumped from like 10 to 5 to 2. Like all of a sudden he's like up in the heavyweight rankings, which I thought was a little quickly. I mean, I know people are very high on his pedigree. I know his French kickboxing background. I know all that stuff. You talk about Muay Thai and stuff like that. And I know I jumped into Dan's comments on his show a few weeks ago, and I was like, I think Derrick Lewis is going to easily knock him out. So we'll talk about all that in a second. But Ngannou wasn't ready to fight in August. Lewis was. Heavyweight title. Lewis said he wouldn't fight if the heavyweight title wasn't on the line. Dana needed more firepower for the sold-out crowd here in Houston, or down in Houston. And here we go. So it's Ciryl Gane, up-and-comer, versus Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis' second chance at the title in the UFC. Since Brandon's checking his notes, I'll let Dan start with this one. I already know who you picked on your show, but do it for us. Who you got and why?
I got Ciryl Gane with this one. I got him by a unanimous decision. We all know Derrick Lewis at any point in time can knock somebody out. But I feel like just with this matchup, he's going to try and play possum, but Ciryl Gane is the type of guy. Everyone always forgets. This guy's a heavyweight, but he moves like a featherweight. He's very quick for the division. He knows how to play the distance game with the kickboxing and the boxing. He's going to come in, come out, come in, come out, and try and pick his shots, get the volume up, and avoid that knockout shot. I think there's going to be a couple of chances where maybe Derrick Lewis has him in range and might try and game plan around like he did before. I just don't feel like it's going to happen. I feel like Gane's going to just keep the movement, keep moving forward, come out, and then avoid anything that Derrick Lewis can do and kind of test his cardio, see how long he can go in a 5-round fight. Because once he gets to 2-3, that's when Derrick Lewis kind of tiles out. So I feel like Derrick Lewis is going to try and get him kind of early, and Gane's going to know that. So he's going to try and stay out of the range early on.
Well, he showed a lot of patience in that Blades fight. What do you think, Brandon?
So my heart, I'm rooting for Derrick Lewis, but the brain is telling me Ciryl Gane is taking this easily, hands down. Sorry, Derrick Lewis, you're going to be home in Houston, but you're not going to be like AJ McKee. Instead, you're going to get embarrassed in front of your people. Dan basically said to you, man, like, Derrick Lewis has knockout power. That's what he has. That's what everybody says. But what else does he have? Ciryl Gane, the better striker, polished, has patience. He can take him down if he wants to. He can work on the ground. Derrick Lewis, same. He's just going to wait. And Rosenstruck was waiting around. Volkov was waiting around. And what happened? Ciryl Gane got his hand raised in both fights. I can see the same thing happening. He's going to attack Derrick Lewis' legs because Lewis doesn't check kicks either. So I can see really either it could be like Dan where it goes all 5 rounds, or Derrick Lewis is going to get gassed out and he's going to get stopped in the third round. Either way, Ciryl Gane's your champ. He'll fight Ngannou next, and we'll go from there.
I'm sorry, I stopped listening. What?
Of course. Don't worry. Don't worry. Just remember, who's lead dog? That's all you need to know.
Man, if I only get one win this week, it's going to be this one. Derrick Lewis is going to knock Ciryl Gane out. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, everybody's talking like Ciryl Gane has all this experience. He's only got 9 MMA fights. 9. Derrick Lewis has been 32 times. People talk about.
I was going to say, yes, 9 MMA fights, but what about his kickboxing experience?
Okay, well, that's where I'm going. People talk about Derrick Lewis's cardio, which has gotten better the last couple of fights. He's clearly been working on it. But people don't know, Derrick Lewis also flirted with boxing as well when he was first starting out. George Foreman wanted to sign him as a pro boxer, and he thought MMA was easier. So he's used to going rounds. He's used to doing in and out and doing what he needs to do, which also has a lot to do with what you say, him being vulnerable to leg kicks because of he does have a boxing stance. But what he's showing against a couple people, and Curtis Blades for one, but also Olenek, is that he has pretty decent takedown defense too. And even when he does get taken down, he doesn't panic. Like against Olenek had him down for like minutes, like for like a whole round. But Lewis never panicked. He knows he's going to get his opportunity, and it just takes one shot. But what I saw against Volkov, what I saw against Rosenstruck, neither one really impressed me from Ciryl Gane. He was more impressive to me against like Tanner Boser and people like that on his way up, and Junior Dos Santos, which arguably he clipped in the back of the head. I'm not going to take anything away from Ciryl Gane because I think he has a very bright future in this heavyweight division. I think it's a little bit weird when people I've heard you're not the only one to say it, Dan. I've heard other people say he moves like a featherweight. I don't think he moves that great. He does move. He's quicker than a lot of these heavyweights.
And then he moves like a middleweight.
Thank you, Brandon. But
it's also the point that.
But I don't think he's the only one in the division that does that. I'll give you a second to respond. Because like Chris Dawkins moves better than Ciryl Gane. That's my opinion. But I'll say this. I don't think Ciryl Gane has the tools to finish Derrick Lewis. I think he has the tools to outpoint him and maybe go 5 rounds and win a decision. But that's 5 rounds you're trying not to get caught by the strongest. Francis Ngannou gets a lot of credit for being Francis Ngannou will tell you Derrick Lewis is the strongest puncher in the heavyweight division. It only takes one. He didn't catch Blades fully on. If you look at the uppercut, he caught him kind of like with his forearm. Like he doesn't need, like if that arm's coming anywhere near your head, you're done. And I don't think he has the grappling ability to kind of slow down Derrick Lewis. So I think Derrick Lewis is going to knock him out. I think it'd probably be in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think he's going to, like he did with Blades, he'll kind of wait till that opening happens. He's not going to panic. And I think Derrick Lewis is going to be the new interim heavyweight champion of the world. Dan, what were you going to say? I'll let you chime in.
I was going to say,
I'm about to mute Brandon.
One of my 2 points is he does only have 9 fights, but we got to remember 4 of those fights are against top 10 heavyweights in the UFC at the time. He had 4 top 10 fights and he won them all. And then he's also a former training partner of Francis Ngannou. So if anybody knows about Ciryl Gane too, it's Ngannou, and Ngannou said that he's going to be a tough out. And I don't think that against Derrick Lewis caught Curtis Blades because Curtis Blades is impatient and he didn't listen and he just ducks down and he goes for that same takedown every time. Derrick Lewis knows that and he got caught. Ciryl Gane gets you with many different looks and he goes in and out from different angles. So that's a lot of things to remember for a guy like Derrick Lewis who likes to play possum. Can he catch him? Yes, but we haven't seen that many holes from Ciryl Gane other than the fact that Volkov was able to kick him 45 times.
Brandon, I'll let you get the final word on this one, Brandon. My biggest fear is this, though. As much as we're talking about all the things that could happen, Dan mentioned it. He trained with Ngannou. What happened when Ngannou fought Derrick Lewis? And what happened when Ciryl Gane fought Rosenstruck? My biggest fear on this fight is we're going to see 5 rounds of almost nothing because Ciryl Gane won't take the risk. Like he didn't take the risk against Rosenstruck. He did what he did to barely win that fight. Like just outpoint him for 5 rounds and just pitter patter for 5 rounds. He did a lot more against Volkov, but he still didn't take a lot of risks against Volkov. And that's what I kind of meant when I talked on Dan's show in the comments about if he fights like he did against those two, he's going to get knocked out because it only takes one shot from Derrick Lewis. My biggest fear is for the fans in Houston. I think if he fights like the way I think he's going to fight, I feel like there's going to be a lot of boo birds in Houston because I don't think Ciryl Gane's going to engage Derrick Lewis to give him a chance to knock him out.
Yep.
But I am picking Derrick Lewis. I'll give you the final word.
And I'm just going. You talk about Ngannou and Lewis. That was after Ngannou just basically got broken down by Stipe,
which is why Stipe should get another shot.
Which he wasn't the same guy. So I'm not even thinking about that. And again, man, you keep doing this thing where you always go about like, oh, if this person fights like how they did with this person, and you gotta remember, the person fights the person a certain way.
What am I supposed to do? I gotta look at what I'm
saying, man. If I'm trying to tell you, man, if Rosenstruck and Volkov are letting Ciryl Gane just walk around, that's what he's going to take. He's going to take what he can. And Derrick Lewis is going to do the same thing because Derrick Lewis is a counter puncher as well. So he's going to wait, and Ciryl Gane just going to lead the dance. He's going to lead the dance. He's going to pop him with his jab. He's going to hit him with those low kicks. And yeah, you're right. Those boo birds are going to come out. Ciryl Gane don't care. He's going to come in there. He's going to make Derrick Lewis lose in front of his people. And it's going to be like, hey, I'll see you in Ngannou. Me and him we can unify the belts.
It's a fun question for both of you real quick. If Ciryl Gane won, you just mentioned how him and Ngannou used to train together. Do they fight? Dan?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
All right. A lot of teammates won't fight. A lot of people that know each other won't fight. So I'm just saying. All right, guys. Co-main event, Jose Aldo, Pedro Munoz. Brandon, I'll start with you. Pedro just coming off that win against your teammate Jimmy and what was just one of the fights of the year, like just an explosive back and forth fight. Pedro had the more dominating leg kicks and striking, and I thought Jimmy did great, but when it went to the ground, it was all Pedro. What do you see happening in this fight with Aldo, and who wins?
I got Jose taking it. I mean, dude, really, man, ever since he really kind of went down to 135, man, he looks like a different person. You know, I mean, he looks like WEC Jose Aldo. I just think he's the better striker. You know, I mean, the thing is, like, everybody always talks about Jose Aldo's ground game, but we've yet to see because nobody's ever really taken him to the ground. But I think this is gonna be a stand-up fight, like how Pedro did against Jimmy. I think Jose's gonna take it.
Dan?
This one was a tougher one for me because you see Jose Aldo looking like more of a Jose Aldo of before because it seems like he has more confidence in his leg kicks again, or he just decided he wants to use them a lot more now. Both of these guys throw leg kicks. Pedro Munoz doesn't check them, so that's a big no in this matchup. But you saw in the Rivera fight, he hurt Rivera's leg.
Does Aldo check him?
Kicks. A little bit, not like every time, but he hurt Rivera, and Rivera has bigger legs than Aldo, but Aldo has those snapping leg kicks that are going to hurt him. So it's going to be either whether Aldo can stop the takedown, or will Pedro Munoz try and just push him against the cage? Because one thing Aldo struggles against is fighters that move forward. They move forward and don't go backwards. And he could get pressured against the cage and just lose like a gritty way. But I feel like he's going to try and game plan and stay in space, use those leg kicks, use the movement. And I feel like this is going to be like a split decision type fight where he's going to pull out like a squeaker.
I can see a split decision. So you're picking Aldo?
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Munoz. It's ironic. We talk about this. It seems like it'd be a repetitive thing when we're talking about fights is age, right? And Brandon makes fun of me how I think some fighters are old, but some fighters aren't, and they're like the same age. This is one of those fights because, right, Jose Aldo was on top of the mountain for so long that the fact that he's 34 and the fact that Pedro's 34, but nobody looks at, like, they look at Jose as like this fighter who's done, and they look at like Pedro who's like coming up. Both of them had very impressive last performances. Pedro versus Vera. Pedro versus Jimmy and Rivera. And I was saying in Aldo versus Vera, Marlon Vera. But both of them had a few losses before that too. The one thing I think that gives Pedro the advantage this one is the grappling. Like Jose is like a fish. I mean, he's Brazilian, but he's like a fish out of water when he's on his back. And we've seen him on his back a couple times in fights where he just kind of he lays there, he does the ear smacks, but he's not really trying to get out of moves. He's kind of like just waiting until it's over. I think it's going to be a decision. I think Pedro's going to win via decision, but I don't think people are going to get the highlights that they're thinking of that these two guys are kind of known for. I think the leg kicks could be a factor both ways because I don't think Aldo really checks too many leg kicks either. I've seen him get his leg kind of swept out a couple times as well. But like you said, the grittiness, the up against the cage, on the ground, I think that's where Pedro will have the advantage. I think Aldo has the ability to knock out most people, but nobody's ever stopped Pedro Munoz. Not Jimmy Rivera, who has knockout power, not anybody in that division, not Frankie, not Aljamain, not anybody. And Pedro also has 8 subs. So technically speaking, I'm not really sure about this fight because I think it could go either way. I think it's going to be a back and forth fight, but I do think that Pedro's going to get the win via decision just because of his ground game. So, all right, guys, time we make our extra pick of the night. Dan, you're our guest. I'll let you go first. What fight are you picking and why? And I'm going to tell the world right now before there's a little bit of spoiler. I am not picking the Angela Hill fight this time because every time I do, I feel bad for Angela because I've cost her like 3 fights at this point because the fights never happen. So, Dan, pray tell, who are you picking?
I'm going Tessa Torres against Angela Hill. This is the rematch of a fight I believe was 5-6 years ago. We didn't think it was ever going to happen, and it is going to happen. I feel like Tessa Torres is going to get the win here. I just feel like Angela Hill is going to come in, and she does have a lot going for
By
her.
the way, it's Tisha Torres. You always correct me, so I'm correcting you now.
All good, but she's going to come in with the angles. She can throw leg kicks, but a big thing with her is she throws that right hand, and she kind of telegraphs it with the side step to the right hand. And a lot of people have been talking about that. And I feel like Tessa Torres is going to time her takedowns to get her down because she can wrestle, she can throw leg kicks, and she can strike. And I feel like she's going to just use that against her and take her down. And everybody knows that Angela Hill is kind of a fish out of water whenever she gets taken down. She's not the best on her back. And I feel like whenever that's going to happen, it's going to benefit Torres. And I do think Torres is going to win by unanimous decision. I think Hill will have her good points in the fight. I just think that this is going to be the spot that we know Angela Hill for. She'll win, get inside that top 10, but then she'll lose. She'll never get past that one spot.
Yeah, I think it's a bad matchup for Angela, to be honest with you, because of Tisha's grappling. I think Tisha's going to try to stand with her early, and she'll do like the kicks and stuff like that. But once Angela starts roughing her up on the feet, I think she takes her down, and I think that's a different fight. But it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot closer matchup than the first time they fought like 6 years ago, 2015, I think. So it was a rematch, like because Tisha said she never wanted to have a rematch like again. She wanted to fight new opponents, and both of them had opponents keep falling out. So here they are. They're like, well, if you want to fight, this is who we got for you. And then this fight got pushed back again like a month. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully they do fight this time. It'll be a fun fight. Brandon, who's your pick and who you got?
I'm going with the Jessica Penne versus Karolina Karelitz fight, double K. I'm going with Jessica Penne. I know how much of a fan you are of her, Mike, so I'm rooting for Jessica Penne to take this one. To me, man, double K, she hasn't been the same ever since she fought for the title. You know, she just hasn't been the same. I think she's 2-5, I want to say, in her fights. Yeah. So I mean, I just think Jessica Penne is going to win. And I think Double K might be getting those walking papers after this one.
I honestly think that'd be the best thing to happen to Carolina, to be honest with you, if she had a new change of scenery, whether it was Bellator or PFL or something like that. But she's a little lighter.
She won't go to Bellator.
That's the only really other choice she has. The PFL doesn't really have lighter women's divisions.
Neither does Bellator because she fights at 115.
Yeah, but Bellator might bring somebody in. PFL won't do it for a whole tournament.
I don't think Bellator's doing 115. They do 125 and 145.
I can see her making 125 though. That just means cutting less weight.
What about Invicta?
And Invicta, she could go back to Invicta. But I don't think that's the case. I think she's going to beat Jessica Penny's ass. And I don't. That's not even me being hateful.
You said that about Jessica Penny in the last fight.
No, I didn't. I said when Jessica Penny was supposed to fight Hannah Goldie, and then they changed the matchup because of injury, and then Jessica Penny ended up fighting Lupita Godinez. Now she's fighting a former contender. I think it's a little bit different. Jessica Penny is also 38 years old. And you want to talk about age? Talk about it there. Carolina's 35. She's no spring chicken either.
I love me some Double K. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Double K. I love me some.
But you're picking against her.
I am because I just don't think she's there anymore, man. Like I said, dude, she's lost 4 in a row.
I'm glad your video broke up while you were saying that.
We're on BJ Penn status right now. We're on BJ Penn status.
I'm glad your video broke up while you were saying that. That's what you get. Also, I want to point out, you talked about how I picked against Jessica last time. You're right, because she only won a split decision against I always butcher her name, Godinez as well. It wasn't like a dominant victory against Godinez, who has no resume whatsoever. So she's going against a girl with a resume now. My biggest complaint, first of all, let me stop joking around. I don't have a problem with Jessica Penny. I have a problem with her situation. She had lost 3 or 4 fights in a row, was suspended for 2 years, and then comes back to the UFC like nothing happened. I think she should have had to at least take a fight in Invicta or something else to prove that she belonged. That was my point. I thought when you get popped for steroids, arguably your career was over if it wasn't for the fact that the commission cut a little time off her suspension. I don't think she deserved to still be in the UFC. That was my point, because if she didn't get suspended, I thought she was going to get cut. Brandon, I know your point was that, well, she still was on the roster. You got to put her to work. I get it. But that's my problem with Jessica Penny. It's not personal. She had a great battle with Michelle Waterson back in the day that I still remember as a big classic Invicta battle. So that's that. I do think Carolina's going to win, though. All right, my pick, Casey Kenny, going up against Song. Man, Yadong Song and Casey Kenny is going to be a war. I don't know if it's going 3 rounds. I think both of them have the ability to knock each other out. I think Casey Kenny got a little away from his strategy against Dominic Cruz, which is kind of easy, right? Dominic Cruz is such an unorthodox fighter. He's in and out. He's got all these things going on. And Casey Kenny, especially against Wood, which was a war, and against Halei, he had the constant oh my God, how many head kicks did he land in that Halei fight, right? And then that war against Wood was back and forth. And then all of a sudden he gets against Dominic Cruz, and Dominic Cruz is moving him around. He's not comfortable. Well, Yadong Song is not going to move around. He's not going to be comfortable. The reason why Kyler Phillips got the decision over him is because he stood right in front of Kyler Phillips and let Kyler Phillips do a lot of things that Kyler Phillips likes to do. You saw Paiva mix it up with Kyler Phillips, and it was a different fight. I like Casey Kenny in this fight. I think he's going to get the win, but I think it's going to be a 3-round war, and I think it's going to be probably the fight of the night, because I think both these guys are going to bring it and have a lot of fun doing it. And it's going to be, if it's not a record for the amount of strikes in a fight, it could be damn near close, because all they're going to do is just keep throwing at each other until one of them falls down. You guys got any thoughts on that fight? No?
That should be a good one. That's all I know. It could be fight of the night.
Thank you for chiming in there. I shouldn't have to hey, Dan, hey, Brandon, come on, guys. It's a round table. I need to get 4 or 5 more guys in here so we can make it round.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good, though. I have a feeling Sung Yadong's going to win. The only thing I fear with Kenny, I do like Kenny. I just fear that his gas tank starts to fade as the fight goes on, and that's the only thing that scares me with him.
Yeah, that's true. And there's some other fun fights on this card too. Chiesa going against Luque is going to be a fun fight. That's going to pretty much determine who's next, pretty much in that 170-pound contender versus who's after Covington. I don't have much doubt. Huh?
Leon Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards. But the way they treat Edwards, who knows? Maybe Edwards is fighting the winner of this one. It also depends what happens in that Covington Usman fight? What happens when one of them gets hurt? What happens when one of them needs some time off? But I think Luque and Chiesa is definitely for that. If Edwards is number 2, I think Edwards is number 1 and Covington's number 2, right? Am I wrong?
No, I think it's Covington, Burns, and Edwards still.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, or maybe the winner of this fight's Burns. I know Burns is trying to call out Nate Diaz for that card in New York as well. So we'll see what happens.
He's calling out everybody.
He is, but he's really pushing for Nate Diaz for that 268 card.
I don't know why.
Because he thinks it's an easy win.
He wants the money, man. He wants the
money. He wants the money, and he wants a win to keep that momentum going. He looked good against Thompson, and he knows he doesn't think – most people don't think Nate Diaz is a threat. They think it's a money fight because Diaz is going to bring the noise, he's going to bring the crowd, and he's going to put on an entertaining fight, just like against Edwards. He gets his ass kicked for 4 rounds, all of a sudden catches him in the 5th round because Edwards is coasting, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about Nate Diaz for another 6 months. That's the best thing in the world for Nate Diaz. He can lose a fight, and people still want to see him fight because he knows he's not backing down. He's not going to get stopped. He's going to keep coming forward unless a doctor stops it like they did with Masvidal. He's not quitting. Also on that card, you got Miles John back in action. Manuel Cape versus Osborne should be a fun fight. Ed Herman, who got away with faking a groin shot when he got hit in the stomach last time out to get the win against Menifield's going to be fun. Draco Rodriguez versus Morales should be a fun fight. And I always love watching Bobby Green fight. He's been up and down throughout his career, but fighting another up-and-comer in Fiziev should be fun. I think that about covers it, guys. Anything else y'all want to talk about this week?
I just want to make the point that I just thought about that Pitbull. He's coming up on his last fight in his contract, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. This was his second to last, and now he has his last fight left on the contract. So to see whether they try and sign him for a little bit longer, or maybe he tests the waters and maybe after his last fight he goes to the UFC. Who knows?
I feel like if he had beat McKee, that might have been a thing. But I also think he's Bellator for life. He's made it very publicly to say that he built Bellator, him and his brother. So we'll see. I mean, Chandler jumped ship, and I didn't really see that. I guess I kind of saw that one coming. But if you had asked me a few years ago, I wouldn't have seen that one coming. When contracts are up and numbers are involved, and who knows, maybe Dana backs up the truck. But it's going to be kind of hard coming off a loss. I mean, I know Chandler came off the Pitbull loss and still jumped over to the UFC. But Chandler had a win before he jumped over, didn't he?
Yeah, Benson.
Yeah, he beat Benson. So he bounced back. If Pitbull bounces back in his last fight and wins, whether it's against AJ or anybody else, I think he has a big market for him in the UFC. But we'll see. I mean, Dana famously just said this weekend he didn't even watch the fight. He was doing something else. So,
of course he was, liar.
I don't know. He said something because he just said he didn't watch the UFC card either. He said he was what did he say? He had some event or something he was doing that he said he'd have to go back and watch everything because they get caught up. But yeah, I mean, that'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting point. And of course, real quick before we get out of here, you want to plug your show?
Oh yeah, you can check my show, Cage My IQ. I just got done doing my preview for this week. Of course, it'll be released tomorrow at noon. And of course, I do the recap for it every Monday. And of course, I also cover Bellator and PFL. So you can check that out every week. Just like you said, I like to flood the YouTube channel with my content. So check it all out and comment on my videos.
At this point, I think we're Raw and you're SmackDown. Brandon, before we get out of here, how'd that tournament go this weekend you were at?
Oh, it was good, man.
How'd the kids do?
Kids did great. Had a lot of kids that were doing their first time. So they placed, they won some swords or they got second place medals. Then on Sunday I did the adults. I actually had a teenager girl, 14 years old. She actually went up to the women's division. So she was rolling with old women. She was putting them to sleep, like literally. She put one girl to sleep with a guillotine. Nice. The ref had to step in and stop it, and she actually got first place. So I had a 14-year-old girl do that. So I was proud of them. It was a good time. Wildwood was always fun.
Awesome. Next time you're in Wildwood, make sure you at least hit Dan up. Let him know in the area.
Dan hit me up. He was like, "Oh, you're in Wildwood?" I'm like, "Yeah." So yo, the invite was there, man. You just had to say, yo, I'm coming down. All right, let's meet up.
Dan's busy with Pee Wee football. He ain't going nowhere. All right, guys. It's been a fun episode. Make sure you check out FightersFirst.shop. Get all of our fresh merch. Of course, the promo code's right above us for Mercenary. Dan's got his Cage My IQ shirt on there. That's in the shop too. Support a lot of great programming. We're doing this for free. We're trying to get you some great content every week. Get you these previews. Get these results. Get these picks. I haven't been doing that great, but Brandon's still winning, so it's still good picks you can sit there and hopefully make some money off of. I don't know. We've had a couple guys use our picks to win more money than we have, so there you go. Dan and I might actually be getting back to doing some more DFS action. We talked about doing it this week, but with all the fight cancellations and changes, man, this is such a crazy card. We were like, we're leaving UFC alone this week. So maybe getting back for UFC pay-per-view this weekend. I don't know. Maybe we'll pop something on. Dan and I will talk about that off the air, or at least Dan might do it by himself, if nothing else. The world is crazy. Everything's moving on, and everything's going crazy again right now. So everybody be safe, stay healthy. For Dan, Brandon, and myself, this is Art of MMA, and we'll see you next week.